Hello and welcome to Husky Talk. I am your host, the best podcast host in the universe, Steve Cully. I would like to thank our sponsors at Procyon Partners. Procyon Partners, one of the top 50 fastest growing companies in the country. President Sean Rabinowitz, he's a proud supporter of Husky Talk. And once I make my first million, he's going to get me a Tesla. So I look forward to that. I would also like to mention Green Street Trust International. Green Street Trust is owned by former teammate and friend Renell Jump. They specialize in asset management and they have tax strategies to reduce your taxes. You can schedule your free strategy session today at calendly.com/Green Street Trust. And finally, our newest sponsor, Pete Finch and the Finch Law Firm. If you feel your rights have been violated or otherwise have had some sort of personal injury in a pinch, call Finch. And with me today, a very special guest, Dr. Trisha Bailey, philanthropist, entrepreneur, has her own business with medical devices, which one that I personally used myself, and also a former UConn alum and ran track and from Connecticut and from Jamaica as well. I don't have enough time to list her accolades and titles because there's a ton of them. Thank you so much for being with us and welcome to Husky Talk.
Thank you for having me, Steve. It's always so wonderful to be with a fellow Huskian.
Yes. And it's funny because I think you graduated my freshman year. I think you graduated in 99, and that is exactly when I came in. And I did use one of your medical devices, the scooter, and can say that it saved me. It saved me a lot. Yes. I had to use the scooter for a while, and it allowed me to live a normal life and work a job, and it was really amazing. So I appreciate. I know you have other stuff, but that was really special to me. So knowing that came from you in one of your businesses is incredible. Just to start, I know you. I read your memoir, and I am not typically a reader, but I read it and I was just moved. I would say I was very moved by it. Everything that you've gone through, everything that you've overcome, everything that you've accomplished is just really remarkable. Where most people would not have the grit and be able to dust themselves off and overcome, you were able to do that. So just reading that memoir, it was really something, and you are an outstanding writer as well.
Well, thank you. I actually didn't personally write it myself. C.K. Mulford did
Right.
the story. So,
but your story is amazing. Your story is absolutely amazing. Now, early on, before you came to Connecticut, I know you were from Jamaica, and you came here at an early age, correct?
right, at 13, I came from Jamaica
13.
to Hartford, Connecticut.
And you went to one of the toughest schools around. I coached briefly at Windsor, and we played Weaver. And Weaver was not one of the nicest places, I would say. If I had to put a list together of nice places, Weaver would not be one of them. So then that's where you went to school, right?
That's where I went to school. Yes.
Oh my God.
So, it's sometimes when you have struggles, or challenges, so you just figure out how to overcome them. You figure out how to go over the hurdle, under the hurdle, around the hurdle, but somehow you have to make it on the other side. And, being in a tough environment makes you tougher.
It does. It does. It really does. And if you're not challenged and you're entitled and spoiled, when those things happen, you struggle to get through them. I 100% agree with you. One of the things that I had read about you was a huge influence in your life was your grandmother.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about her and how important she was to you?
And my grandmother was my world, my heaven, my everything. So my grandmother helped to raise my sister and I, and as well as all her other children, my aunts. And I watch her work so diligently and so hard every day in Jamaica. Walk into the market with the donkey to sell the produce that she farmed, feed all of the children in the community. At dinner time, everyone would show up, and my grandmother would feed, make sure every child got something to eat. And oftentimes, I'll watch her drink the broth from whatever food that she had made as her meal because there was no more food for her to eat. And I watched her years and years just sacrificing herself, committing herself to giving us all the love that she possibly knew how to do, and being kind to the world, being kind to everyone that's around her. So my greatest compliment, my uncles told me that I was the closest version of my grandmother that he has ever met. And there's not a better
Uh,
compliment than that.
I can just see you smile and glow as you talk about your grandmother, and she must have been very special, and especially having everyone eat first, and she would eat last to make sure that everyone was fed. And I'm sure that that must have had a huge influence on you, especially early, to see her, because you have given back so much. You
Yes.
saw it early on with your grandmother giving back. That must have been like, a mentor, someone you looked up to. I mean, she was your everything.
She was really my everything. And I believe that when you're kind, I've learned to be kind because I've had lots of others who have been kind to me. And children, as they're growing, is in their developmental stages. And when you're kind to children, they become kind adults, and kind adults become productive and good humans.
And
And
you're
so my role is to help others, and that's my calling. And it is to pour kindness and love into everyone that meets me, everyone who engages with me, so that they can have enough kindness to give to the rest of the world as well.
and you hit the nail on the head with that. And it's one of the things that I really think is missing is our society where we're not as kind as we used to be. I think we were a more understanding, caring, compassionate, empathetic society. And over the years, not so much anymore. I think it's kind of gotten lost a little bit. Do you see that happening?
I think that that's the one thing, that's the main thing that is missing versus back in probably before, in my grandmother's time, when you in the
Right.
Jamaica we use the word trust. So you could go to the grocery store as a child and you said you want $100 worth of items, and you don't have the money, and they call it, I trust you the items. That means I trust you that you're going to repay me for these items. And the handshake in the American culture, our trust is the handshake in America. And we have gone so far away from that because the world is changing, has changed from being kind and honest and strong morality. And I am indebted, and I am determined to be able to inject as much kindness and moral fortitude, mental fortitude into the world, and influence as many people as I can, so that we can hopefully get back to that place where a young girl or boy can walk the streets and play outside and feel safe. And
Yeah.
that's kindness is what's really missing in a lot of places in the school system, because if children are kind, they wouldn't be bullies. If children are kind, they wouldn't be bullies, therefore they wouldn't be school shootings.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly understand the girl in my life that I may or may not be seeing, depends on the day. I love her to death. and she's been there through everything that I've gone through. She works with a lot of kids, and she's a counselor, mental health therapist. She the biggest things, and she works with kids, and the biggest things that she deals with is bullies, kids who are being bullied, and it's something that is nonstop. Like you and I were in school, we could at least go home at the end of the day, and the bullying would be over.
Yeah.
Kids nowadays, with phones and social media, it's just never ending. And I had read an article on ESPN that during March Madness last year, college basketball, the women received 25% more abuse than the men, as far as like toxicity in the messages on social media, threats of violence, name calling. I could not believe, and like it's gotten that bad so fast, and it's happened really, to women, to people are attacking them. And I don't get it. I don't understand why it has to be that way. I always thought you have to give respect to get respect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
and what are your thoughts on that? With it's March Madness, it's a sport, it's basketball, but for the girls to get bullied like that and receive all these horrible messages throughout the tournament, like I was just I couldn't believe it. Like I just think it's everyone loves sport, but there's a line.
Yeah.
we
There
shouldn't
is.
have to we shouldn't cross that line.
I think that the fans sometimes dehumanize the athletes,
They
and
do.
being woman, you're always it's the country we live in, so you're always lesser than your male counterparts, and the audience dehumanize you and believe that you don't have feelings, so they're going to say whatever comes to their mind, and they're not thinking this is someone's daughter, this is someone's sister, this could be your child that you're talking to, and they may be seeing these very harsh and mean and emotionally disruptive comments. So with our student athletes, mental health component to it is such a big major issue, because not only are you having to withstand a lot of pressure to win, you're able to have to withstand your schoolwork, because mind you have two jobs as a collegiate athlete. You are in school full time and you're working as a sport. That's a full-time job. And I think the fans forget that these kids essentially, a lot of them are kids because they're usually younger than 21 that are performing at the collegiate level. They're humans, and they're humans, and they should be treated kindly. And yes, they're not going to be always perfect, because there's no one perfect on the court or on the track or whatever sport that they're playing. And I believe that, again, it's back to being the kindness. And with sexism in this country, I know for myself, I've
Yeah.
always known, you just like how there's racism, there's always sexism,
Yeah.
and
I
there's
know.
classism and all those things. But at my stage of the game, where it's at the elite, at the highest level of elite, I experience more sexism now than I ever did in my life.
And I could see that. Would you say that's more out of people having jealousy, people being insecure? Is that why you would say you would experience it more?
I don't know if it's jealousy or insecurity. I think it's a part ingrained in the structure of the culture, that
Yeah.
you can't be as smart as, you cannot be as analytical, you cannot be as you mental fortitude that a man can. For example, when I own my own aircraft now, but when I used to charter, every single time I charter, even if it's my 15-year-old son, the pilot always goes to the man. If it's my cousin, then they'll send him back to me. He says, no, go to Dr. It's her, Dr. Bailey. And he'll go to the man every single time. And I was chartering sometimes 2, 3 times a week. And it happened every time. And that's
Oh
just a part
my
of
God,
the culture. It's a sad part, but it's a part of the culture that has to
the
be adjusted,
culture.
has to be changed.
Um, when you came here at 13 and you end up going to Weaver, um, is that when you started to find your path in sports right away, or did it take a little time? Because I know it was a difficult transition coming to the States and going to Weaver, but is that when sports became part of your life?
Yes, so sports became a part of my life because I wanted to get away from the house. My
Right.
stepfather was the least that you can describe him, the best you could describe him as a monster. And
Yes.
I wanted to get away from the house. So I started doing sports. And my freshman year, I did gymnastic, volleyball, and tennis. In my freshman year, I sucked at gymnastic, by the way. So the following year, I was running around the track, warming up for gymnastics, the winter sports, and the girls' indoor track was where they were warming up as well. And one of them came to me and said, you're really good at running, and that's usually all I need to hear. I'm good at something. Let me go. I run with it, and I quit gymnastics, started running track, and I was teamed up with the number one girl in the nation because she was on the Weaver track team at the time, and I wanted to emulate what she was doing, and I did everything to emulate her, and she became number one in the state. I was number two. That's the year she was number one in state open. I was number two in New England as well as the nation. So, finding that person or thing that drives you
Yeah.
does make a big difference. And so that's how I started in running track and
I
realized that
believe
you're good at it.
I believe you ran that. I know you ran the 800 on the outside,
I
right?
ran 400 and 800.
400 and 800, and indoor. What did you run?
Indoor was also 400 and 800. I also did it.
Same. Okay.
I did it 500 because indoor you do 500 instead of 400. And I did 600 in New England's as well.
Oh, so they really tried to put you in as much as they could because they saw the talent. And I know I did track as well. You get 4 events, so they try to put and get as much out of you as they could.
I was maxed out I was always maxed out events because they needed the points to win the meet. So
I know, right?
yeah,
I mean, I can't even imagine, God, having to run an 800 and then having to run the 400. Yeah, I would definitely be maxed out myself. Yes, that's a lot, and it's good that your coaches probably. Would you say that they encouraged you, supported you, were mentors to you?
so it depends. So at
It
Weaver,
depends.
I would. My first coach was Coach Butterfield, and he left the year that Maxine, who was a young lady who was winning, and I had asked him to stay for an extra, until I graduated. And he said, well, he had already committed to Maxine that he's staying until she graduates, and then he
Uh,
was going to another school. So after that, I ended up coaching myself. I found workouts that I
oh,
did myself because the coaching
you
staff
didn't
after
have
that
anything.
was not, they weren't
Yeah,
good. So I
yeah.
found workouts through my friends, from their coaches, from their schools, and I continue I've always been an extremely focused individual. I am now. I'm trying to be less focused now because my workload is so much and I need a little bit more fun in my life. But back then I was always tunnel vision. So it was like, this is what I'm doing, and I was gonna get it done at my absolute best.
Um, so you ran track. When would you say you started to get recruited by UConn or had thoughts of going to UConn?
So I started recruiting my first year, which was my 10th grade in high
Oh my,
school.
wow.
Coach Nat was started recruiting me, and she recruited me and recruited me. I wanted to go to Morgan State, and for other reasons other than school or track. So
Understood.
my mom says, absolutely not. You're going to UConn. So that's how come I ended up at UConn, and it was the best decision that she's ever made for my life.
Yeah, I coached at Holy Cross, and we did play down at Morgan State, so I got to see the campus a few times. I think you made the right decision. I think you would have been happy,
I think so.
much happier at UConn. So that's interesting. So your mother was a big part, a big influence, despite the trouble that you had with your stepfather. Your mother was there, and she helped kind of guide you, especially with such a big decision like that.
Yeah.
Were there any other schools that you were looking at, or was it primarily UConn, Morgan State?
So my two choices were, so it was UConn, Morgan State, University of Georgia, Florida State. And I was offered a full scholarship for all the schools that recruited me. So I was recruited for pretty much most Division I universities in the country. But there was narrowed down through my visits, my recruiting visits, narrowed down to UConn, Morgan State, and University of Georgia.
Did you like the University of Georgia when you went down there?
I did. I actually did. And I really liked it a lot because one of the girls, I was running at the time about 212 when my junior year. And one of the girls who was on the team, she came in running 212 and then she was at 206 by the time I met her junior year. So I wanted to go for track reasons there. Mom said, I don't have enough money for me to come back home on holidays. So I can't go too far. So
no, I know what that's like. I coached football at Holy Cross, and Thanksgiving and Easter, we had so many kids that didn't have enough money to go home for the holidays, and my fiance and I would always have them over just to make sure, because I never wanted our kids to be in a dorm room or an apartment alone on Thanksgiving, because it's such a short break. Wednesday, a lot of the time, that's the only day they get off, or they have class Wednesday, and then you got to be back on Sunday. So I know how important that is, and it's good that you were able to stay close to home. And I'm sure your mother was thrilled to have you close to home so she could watch you compete. And, if you want to go home for a weekend, you could. And that makes things a little bit easier. Like for me, I'd go home and do my laundry.
So the nice part was that when I got sick, she showed up with soup. And
she showed up with soup.
Different things, yes. And like these care packages, which was lovely. So whenever I got sick, I knew that she was coming to baby me. That's my mom's superpower. When I get sick, she babies me to the ultimate. Even now,
yes. Yeah, you know what, Trisha, Dr. Bailey, I am the exact same way. My mother babies me to this day, so that's always good to have at times. Sometimes, sometimes. One of the things that I had read, you initially had aspirations to be a teacher, and your mother did not necessarily agree with that and talked you out of it, so to speak.
Well, I told her, so my aspiration was to become a teacher. I love
You
children.
love kids. Yes.
I absolutely love kids. So my undergrad was human development and family relations with a concentration in early childhood development. And I had a whole plan. I was going to become an elementary school teacher, and then I was going to become a principal, and then get my doctorate and become a superintendent. And so when I told her that, she says, "No, you can't be a teacher. You are not patient enough with people's kids." and when she said that, I was like, okay, I guess I got to find another career. It's clearly I listened to my mom somewhat, but
yeah.
And I was like, I love numbers and I love finance. So, and I was always working at the banks in the summers. And so I directed my efforts towards the financial market.
Did you end up switching majors as well?
I did not. I kept my major because this decision was made at the end when I was graduating.
That's right. It was at the end. She's like, "Oh, you're not going to be a teacher." That's funny. That's funny that it happened that way. So you get to UConn. How would you describe your track career there? I mean, you competed. Did you still compete 400, 800? Was that your main events?
So in high school, I did for every event from the 300 hurdles, javelin, all the way, everything in between, up to 3200. That's what I competed in high school. So when I but my strongest event was 800, and my next strongest was the 400. So when I got to UConn, coach so I redshirted my first year because my SAT scores wasn't in line with what the Big East or NCAA.
Well, the SAT is not the best judgment.
I would think so too. I think most people would say that based on my track record.
Yeah, yeah, yep. The SAT is a little overrated.
So I redshirted my freshman year, and then I started. So my sophomore year, when I started competing, it was interesting because I was winning everything in high school, and now I've taken a whole year off. You're kind of a bit rusty, even though I was training, but it was still not competitively with competing with the rest of the collegiate athletes. And I remember my first race, I was like, okay, this is how I do it in high school. The last 300, I open my strides. The last 200, I go full out sprint. Well, I realized my first meet was the Florida State Open Championship. Well, all the girls had the same strategy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh crap, they're all staying with me. So I had to make some adjustments with that. And I had a very successful career.
Were the coaches at UConn at least much more helpful than not having one really in high school? At Weaver?
Oh my God, the coaches were amazing. So Coach Knapp had left and went to another school, and then we had Coach Bogenschuh that came in, and she was my events coach, 800, the middle distance and distant runners. And when I tell you, she was everything to me. She motivated me to the point where my focus was untouchable. She made adjustments to the coach. So I'm best when I'm competing alone for some strange reason. Most people compete better with other people around them or with them. But for me, I compete best when I'm training alone. And so she noticed that I needed to because I was used to training alone in high school. And so she noticed that and made the adjustments. And she made that adjustment in my end of my sophomore year, it was after that.
That was it. Yeah. Everything that I read about you has just stated that you have such a tremendous work ethic. And I don't know if it was from high school, not having a coach and having to do everything yourself, or where it came from, but your work ethic is what I've read that sets you apart from everyone. Because you work as hard as you can for as long as you can, and you never give up, and you always have a positivity about you and a confidence, and you believe in yourself. Where would you say that you started with that, having that work ethic or developing that work ethic, or was it always in you?
So that came from my grandmother and my aunts. And in Jamaica, I walked 3.5 miles to school each day, and working was normal. Like I woke up every morning at 4 a.m., help with my aunt with some little kids and get them ready, send them off to school, and then walk behind them to get things. So there's like a running joke in my family. When I was younger, I was always ordering people around, and I always had a baby somehow on my hip, even though I may have been 7. So it's always been a part of me. It's because, and in high school, I used to tell myself, whatever is worth having is worth working for. And I used to repeat that to myself over and over and over. And if you work hard and you're strategic, now you can work hard and be in the same spot because you just work.
You can.
Yes. Yeah. So if you're strategic in your efforts and you're working hard, you will be successful.
Right. And a lot of people do exactly what you say they do. They'll punch a clock and they'll work hard. But as far as maybe developing a business plan or having a strategy or having a life plan, you definitely don't see that as much. Did you go into UConn or after UConn and have kind of a plan of where you wanted to go? Besides being a teacher, when that didn't happen, did you have a plan of where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do?
Not so. Yes, I would say sort of, kind of, yes, but no, not really. And I think I kind of fall in line with the average college student who's like, okay, what am I going to do?
Right.
Am I going to be this? Am I going to be that? I knew I wanted to get a doctorate degree, and I knew eventually I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know what entrepreneurship
Yeah,
meant
right,
or even
right.
what that looked like. And I just kept working towards everything that I did. I made sure I gave it my maximum effort. And in giving it my maximum effort, I started seeing successes pretty much in endeavors that I was in.
So
So I think
yeah, go ahead.
I believe that it's okay if you don't know what you want to do. It's okay if you don't know what direction. Just make sure that every task that you're doing, you're practicing excellence. And as long as you're practicing excellence, what will naturally happen, you will become successful in whatever space it is that you're in.
That's great advice, and that's good to hear. So you obviously developed what they call an entrepreneurial spirit. I can't pronounce it well enough. That came. You knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur. You developed the spirit for it. How did you get started in it first off? And I mean, did you end up going back to school right away?
So I did not go back to school right. Well, depends what you consider right away. My right away would have been immediately because I usually think of something I started right now, but I
Yeah,
waited for about a year, 2 years before I went back to do my MBA. And
correct.
then, so I started working as a stockbroker at Solomon Smith Barney. And then when I
Right.
transitioned from Solomon Smith Barney, actually it was 4 years. 4 years later, I went to the pharmaceutical industry and they told me that they pay for your degree if you go back to school. So I said, oh, that's all I needed to hear. So I started my MBA, and then subsequently after that, I did my doctoral degree. So I was being promoted every year while I was in the pharmaceutical industry. My last year that I was there, I was in the industry for 8 years. I was promoted to California. I was finishing my doctorate at the time. I had an MBA. I had a cardiology and a pulmonary degree at the
I
time.
read that. Yeah,
I was
that's amazing.
I was also number one or number two in the company every subsequent year. And when I got to so usually they interview you for a promotion, but they decided to not do a formal interview. So my boss decided, yes, he will, hire me without the formal sit down interview. And I transitioned to California. And when I got there, my lunch with him, my first lunch, he says, "Oh, I didn't know that you were Black." And I said, "Yeah, I am. I'm Jamaican,
Oh
actually."
boy.
And after that day, he started disapproving all the things he approved from me previously, and that's when my entrepreneurship bug started biting. And at the time, I
Wow.
had a lot of recruiters that were calling me recruit me to different companies because I was putting my resume out there. And then I said to myself one day, I was like, I know what to do. I know doctors. I'll just find doctors jobs. And so I started my first company, which is a medical recruiting company.
That just makes us our white people. We're just idiots sometimes. I cannot believe he said that to you at your first lunch. You just first you sit down, you're having lunch with him, did an interview, and that comes out of his mouth.
But
And credit to you, that you didn't get angry or anything. You just said, "No, I'm Jamaican," and wow, I cannot picture. I do not know if I would have handled that in the same fashion. So
So
that is a
I didn't
credit to
even
you.
know he was being racist at the time, to tell you the truth, because in Jamaica, we're a classist society. A class
Right, right, right.
In America, you are, it's not the same. So everyone you see in Jamaica, we interact with, they're all Black. And you have some Chinese and Indians and white mixed in, but very few. So you don't go through your life thinking of the race, the race, the race, the race, race. And so that's the difference with us here in America, where children very, very young start experiencing what being different look like, feels like, and being treated differently because of the color of their skin or whatever other aspect. In Jamaica, we aren't raised that way, so we aren't always thinking this is what's happening. And in his
Yeah.
case, I had no idea at the moment until when he started disapproving things. I'm like, did he just ask me if I was Black? Now he started disapproving my stuff.
Sorry, I shouldn't be
but,
laughing.
but
It's
in
ridiculous.
all obstacles, there's always the brighter side, because of him, that's how I
That's
started
you
being an
got to
entrepreneur.
That's
And
how
I'm
you get
sure
on your
he
path.
could appreciate where I am now in my journey.
Dr. Bailey, one of the things I also read is that you said advice you may give to young people is to have discipline and financial literacy. I don't know what financial literacy means, so I was going to ask you to explain it to me.
So, for me, it's being disciplined with every aspect of your life, and especially money. It really tells what type
Okay.
of person you are and where you're going to go in your developmental structures. The financial literacy part is when you save that money and you've been disciplined, saving. Okay, how do I use that money to duplicate it? How do I invest it? So you have to learn how to buy your first home, buy investment property, what interest rate, what is interest rate? How much house can I afford? How much mortgage